was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received for good or for evil in the superlative degree of comparison only. Now, we didn't highlight all of the parallelism here. You can take a look at this when you have a chance and find more examples. Now, obviously Dickens was a master stylist, and he took great care in choosing repetition to unify his writing. Study this example and you'll see how effectively it links ideas. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and to find the repetition in the excerpt from George Bernard Shaw's Getting Married. Then come back. There are couples who dislike one another furiously for several hours at a time. There are couples who dislike one another permanently. And there are couples who never dislike one another, but these last are people who are incapable of disliking anybody. The repetition is, there are couples who dislike one another. We have that twice. And then he does it again a little bit shorter. There are couples who... And then he takes the word dislike and he carries that 2 more times with dislike and disliking. By doing this, he has unified his ideas and created a very smooth and flowing style. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and decide what is wrong with the following passage. There are 2 things that could be wrong, and I'll tell you right now, only one is. Choose from these 2 problems. Either the writer has linked unrelated ideas, or the writer is using faulty parallelism. Figure out which of these problems it is, and then come back. I'm going to use process of elimination on this. In order to be classified as great, a baseball player must hit with power. A high lifetime batting average is necessary to field well. The player must also be a quick runner and throwing with strength and precision. Well, the ideas seem linked to me. I mean, in order to be great, the player has to be able to hit, has to have a good lifetime batting average, and field well. This makes sense because all of these things do make a great player. So I'm going to say it can't be linking unrelated ideas. It has to be faulty parallelism. And indeed it is. Remember that when you're writing about things within one sentence, each item in the series should be in the same form as the other item. We call this parallelism. Parallel, like parallel railroad tracks or parallel lines. Things match. We're talking about the same form. We mean you match parts of speech. You match nouns to nouns, verbs to verbs, adjectives to adjectives, adverbs to adverbs. You're matching parts of speech. In addition, you're matching grammatical forms. So, for example, you'll match phrases to phrases. You'll match clauses to clauses. When you do have parallelism, your sentences sound smooth and logical. When you have faulty parallelism, as we call it, your sentences sound jarring and your ideas are not conveyed to your reader. So you want to use parallelism to create logic. You also want to use parallelism to create style. Parallel structures have greater style because they sound better to our ear. Most famous speeches have parallelism. For example, JFK is famous. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Or I came, I saw, I conquered. As we match structures, we create memorable turns of phrase. So you want to use parallelism not only to create connections within your writing, but also to create a smooth style. We've been discussing this throughout the entire program. So I've been saying to you, use some short sentences, some medium sentences, and some long sentences to create a varied style. Now I'm saying use parallelism to create an interesting style, a smooth style, a memorable style, actually a melodic, even a lyric style. It'll make your writing sound good. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and correct the faulty parallelism in the paragraph about baseball players. Then come back. Here's my answer. In order to be classified as great, a baseball player must hit with power, achieve a high lifetime batting average, and field well. The player must also run quickly and throw with strength and precision. Here's my parallelism. Hit with power, achieve a high lifetime batting average, and field well, all in the same grammatical form. Second parallelism. Run quickly. Second one, throw with strength and precision. By paralleling them, I've created a smooth, rhythmic, and logical sound. So you can use parallelism to link related ideas and to make your writing more logical. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and find the parallelism in the transcript of Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Then come back. "Fourscore-and-7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal." The two phrases, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition, are parallel. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. That nation and any nation are parallel, so conceived and so dedicated are parallel. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that this nation might live. Here gave their lives, this nation might live, are both parallel. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. The words fitting and proper are parallel. Now, purposely, I haven't found every single example of parallelism here. I've left a couple for you to find, because the entire speech is filled with parallel structure to make it smooth and flowing as well as memorable. Let's take a look at the second half. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. We cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, and we cannot hallow are all parallel. The brave men, living and dead, parallel, single words, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. Words add or detract are parallel. They're in the same grammatical form. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. Little note, long remember what we say here, never forget what they did here. What we say here, what they did here, all parallel. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us. You'll notice the that there are examples of parallelism in this sentence and the last. Dedicated here and here dedicated are parallel. The unfinished work and the great task remaining are parallel. To continue, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. Notice the phrases increased devotion, last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Let's focus on those last three. Of the people, by the people, and for the people. The words of, by, and for are all prepositions. So they're all parallel because they are prepositional phrases. And again, there are a great many more examples of parallelism in this speech. Go back when you have a chance and find those examples and take a look at how they make the speech logical and unified. In addition, you can create logic and unity by using referrals. These are also called pronouns. Here are some examples. It, he, she, they, this, these, its, his, her, hers, their, such. These words help you link sentences by referring to someone or something that happened previously. And by using a pronoun to replace the noun, you don't have to repeat the noun. Here are some examples. The Stanford Binet IQ test has been used for many years to measure someone's verbal and spatial abilities. This test has increasingly come under fire, however, for bias. I don't take that phrase, the Stanford Binet IQ test, and repeat it. If I did, my sentences would sound very wordy. Listen to this. The Stanford Binet IQ test has been used for many years to measure someone's verbal and spatial abilities. The Stanford Binet IQ test has increasingly come under fire, however, for bias. I don't want to say the Stanford Binet IQ test twice. I would rather replace that with the referral, this test. It makes the sentences more concise and unified. Here's another example. Leonardo da Vinci is famous for many accomplishments. These include outstanding achievements in painting, technology, and science. I don't want to repeat that word accomplishments. I don't want my sentences to sound like this. Leonardo da Vinci is famous for many accomplishments. The accomplishments include. That sounds very jarring and not so smooth. So instead of repeating accomplishments, I'll use these. By using the pronoun, I link my sentences, and I'm creating unity. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and link each pair of sentences with the appropriate referral. Then come back. Here are my answers. Sedimentary rocks are formed when water deposits granular soil over time. They can also be formed from deposits of organic remains of plants and animals. I use the referral they to link my sentences. The Renaissance was a time of looking back to the classical achievements of Greece, Rome, and Arabia. It was also a time of looking forward, for much remained to be discovered. And I use the referral it to refer to the Renaissance. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and read the passage about Hamlet that we've provided in your study guide. Your job is to revise the passage by filling in the blanks with the appropriate connections and transitions. Refer to the list of words and phrases as you revise. You'll find that the list will be very helpful to you. Your answers will probably be a little bit different from mine, and that's okay.